Chris Graham here for Trailblazer RV, and we're going to take you through an RV orientation for this 2013 Innsbruck 259BH. Start right here at the front of the trailer, where you've got your power jack, propane, and battery systems. For the power jack, there's a little on-off switch here. This is not to turn the jack on and off, but the little hitch light on the side, and the up and down switch to raise and lower the jack. You can also remove the bubble level on the top of the jack to access a spot to crank it manually. So there's a jack crank handle inside the front storage compartment for that, if you ever need to manually crank your jack. You can access the propane valves by opening this flap here on top of the propane cover, or you can just remove the whole cover to access the bottles themselves. These are dual 20-pound propane cylinders. Both are full right now, and you have an automatic switchover propane regulator. Right now, the regulator is pointed here for the supply bottle. That makes this the supply and this the reserve. Right now you can see the red line in the sight glass. That shows that there's no propane flowing from the supply bottle. As I open the valve, that sight glass turns from red to green, showing that propane is flowing. What we recommend is that you open both bottles. Then the regulator will deplete the supply bottle first, and once this is empty, it'll automatically start to pull from the reserve bottle. When that happens, this sight glass will change from green back to red, and at that point you can switch the supply over to the second bottle. You can remove the first bottle to go and refill it without ever shutting down your propane system. Behind there is your battery. It's a 12-volt deep cycle RV battery with red, black, and white wires. On this RV, the white wire is the negative, and the red and black are positive. Taped together here with a piece of electrical tape to remind you that these are all positive. You've got two inline fuses here for different circuits on the positive side as well on the red wires. With this battery, it's a flooded wet cell deep cycle RV battery, so it does require a little bit of maintenance. We recommend once or twice a year popping these two caps off to expose the 6 cells underneath and checking the fluid level of the cells. If the fluid looks a little bit low, especially if you can see metal plates sticking through the liquid, you'll want to top that up with some distilled water and put a good charge on the battery. We also recommend removing the battery for winter storage. If it freezes, the battery's no good anymore. So take the battery off for winter storage, store it indoors somewhere where it's not going to freeze, and if possible, we recommend putting a trickle charge on the battery once or twice over the off season. There's 4-corner stabilizer jacks on the RV, so once you're parked in place and relatively level, crank the stabilizer jacks down to be snug with the ground, but you don't want to actually lift the trailer with these. The best way to level the trailer, if you're very unlevel side to side, is to back it up on blocks. Some people use simple 2x6s or 2x4s. We also have RV leveling blocks that we sell in our parts department that are nice and lightweight, fit together like Legos, and work a little better for leveling. Here at your running gear, your tires are inflated to 65 psi. It's stamped on the side of the trailer, max psi 65, and we do recommend go ahead and run your tires at 65 psi. Your lug nuts are torqued to 100 foot-pounds. We recommend periodic retorquing of your lug nuts, and we also recommend periodic repacking of your wheel bearings. To access the wheel bearings, you'll have to remove the wheels for this one and inside underneath this plastic cap. We recommend repacking wheel bearings every year, but depending on how much you actually travel with the RV, you'll certainly want to do that every 2 or 3 years. Here at the back is where you'll find your sewer tank dumping. So your sewer hose attaches right here. We've supplied a new 20-foot medium heavy-duty sewer hose. It's stored inside the rear bumper right now. So sewer hose attaches here, other end goes into the ground, and then you've got two valves. Your larger valve for your black tank and your smaller valve for your gray tank. Always dump the black tank first, and once you can hear that there's no longer contents flowing out of that tank, close this valve and open the gray valve to use your gray water, sink and shower water to kind of flush out the contents of that black holding tank, and so there's nothing left sitting in the hose when you go to disconnect it. Right above that, you've got your city water connection. This is where you can hook up to pressurized city water if you're staying at a site that has water hookups. If you're going to hook into city water connection, we recommend using a water pressure regulator. Just a little brass piece about that big goes on the end of your hose to maintain proper operating pressure in the RV's water system. And right above that is your utility shower. Pretty simple. It's got hot and cold taps and a little shower head in there. It extends to about that high. Don't forget to winterize this when you put the RV away for the season. Here at the back is where you'll access your 30 amp power cord. So it's 30 amps, and we also supply the park adapter that goes on the end of that to break it down to 15 amp power. So you can plug it into your home or a site that doesn't have 30 amp service available. Spare tires mounted on the back. It's worth noting that the trailer doesn't come with a jack or a wheel wrench. No trailer does, so it might be a good idea to make sure you have a wrench available with you that fits your lug nuts, just in case you have to change a tire on the fly sometime. Here around the camping side of the trailer is where we'll find our hot water tank. This is a suburban hot water tank, so it uses an anode rod. When you pull this plug out of the bottom of the tank to drain the water, there'll be a rod on there about that long. It's the sacrificial anode, and the purpose of that anode is to corrode over time to help preserve the inside lining of the tank. Instead of corroding the lining of the tank, the water corrodes the rod itself. So that does need to be replaced periodically, but it can get quite pitted and corroded looking before it needs to be replaced. Depending on the quality of water, typically every 3 to 5 years you'll need to replace the anode rod. Before you pull that rod out, make sure to release the pressure from the tank using the pressure relief valve. The tank sits at about 40 psi when it's under pressure, so if you pull that out before you release the pressure, you'll certainly get sprayed. There's also two little black reset buttons on the outside of the tank. You may need to reset those if the tank ever overheats. Most often that happens if the tank's started up with no water in it. So if you're trying to start up the tank, you know you have propane in your bottles, but it won't start, come out here, press the two reset buttons. Hopefully everything should go back to normal. Back, just a little storage compartment underneath the bunk beds. Nothing really worth explaining in there. This is your fridge vent, so you can turn these two locks to remove this vent to access for maintenance or repair, or just for some cleaning in behind there. But it's primarily just a vent. The fridge needs some airflow to work properly, so you've got one vent here and one on the roof. Again, another vent here for your furnace. Only thing to know about this is it does get very hot, so if you've got young kids around the trailer, make sure they know not to touch that. And this is where you'll fill your freshwater holding tank. With the same hose that you use to hook up to your city water connection, we recommend one of those white drinking water specific hoses rather than just a garden hose, so you don't get that plastic garden hose taste in your water. This will fill directly into the fresh tank. To drain that tank, there's a little drain valve right on the end of the tank, so just turn that open to drain the tank and the tank obviously is empty right now. Your awning is a manual style awning. We'll show you how to extend that. So at both arms, you've got a travel lock and a tension knob. So we'll need to undo the travel lock and loosen off the knob at both arms. And then hiding here inside the front storage compartment is your awning pull rod. So using the looped end of the pull rod, flip this switch from the roll up to the roll down position, just like so. On the other end of the rod is a little hook to hook into your awning pull strap. You can pull that out by hand. Rafters slide up and hook in place at the top of the arm. Then I like to just put a little bit of pressure down on the arm to tighten this up. That just ensures that the canvas is nice and tight. We'll do that at both sides. Slide up, hooks into place, and tighten up the tension knob again. And then you can use these lower handles to lift the awning up into place. A couple of things we recommend with the awning. If it's a very windy day, you'll probably want to pull the awning in. With this style of awning, you can also get straps to strap it down in the case of a windy day. If there's a possibility it might rain, we recommend leaving one side of the awning lower than the other so the rainwater can run off. And a little trick that I like to do is, especially if there's kids around the trailer, I like to take just a little clip or a bolt and thread it through this next lowest hole here. That way if somebody were to come by and pull the handle, the awning can't crash down. To put the awning away, exactly the same thing, only backwards. Lower the arms down. Loosen off the tension knob. Slide the rafters down. And then you'll want to flip the switch back to the roll up position. When you do that, make sure you're holding two things in your hands, one being your awning pull rod and the other being the pull strap. And back to the roll up position. The awning is spring loaded, so it has tension. It's going to want to go up immediately. That's why it's important to hold on to the strap. Let it go all the way up. Once it's all the way up, lock the travel locks and tighten the tension knob again. We'll do that on both sides. Now your awning's put away and ready to travel. There was a couple more jack crank handles here in the front storage compartment. This is for your stabilizing jacks, so you'll use that to crank your jacks down to be snug with the ground. And this is for your power tongue jack should you ever need to manually crank that. If you'll follow me inside the trailer, we'll go through a few more things. To extend your step, pull with two hands to extend the first step and then flip the second step over. inside the trailer. Just inside the trailer is a couple of switches. One for your main entry light, and the second switch is for your outside yard light. Your main ceiling lighting just has switches right on the light fixtures itself. And right above those light switches is your slide out control switch. So if you just press and hold the out button to slide the slide out, it goes out about 24 inches. When you hear the motor start to labor like that and that little ratcheting sound, that means the slide out is fully extended. Just take your finger off the button. Here in the kitchen, you've got a 3-burner gas stovetop here. So if we turn the burners over to light and then use the piezo sparker to light each of the 3 burners, what I recommend is anytime you change a propane bottle or refill a propane bottle, once you've reconnected your propane system, come in here and just light all 3 of these burners. Once you can light all 3 of these burners, you know you've bled the air off of the propane system, and you won't have any trouble getting your fridge, furnace, and hot water tank to light. Speaking of the fridge, it's a automatic gas electric Dometic fridge. So if we turn it to the on position, and recommend that you just always leave it in automatic mode. If it has electricity available, in automatic mode it will always run on electricity, but if you blow a breaker or the trailer becomes unplugged, it'll sense that and it'll automatically switch over and run on propane. You can override the automatic to only run the fridge on gas. You may want to do that if you're concerned about blowing a breaker or plugged into a weak breaker or something. Or you may find that the fridge cools a little bit faster on gas than on electricity. Having said that, it takes several hours to cool an RV fridge down. So we recommend getting the fridge cooling the night before you load up so that it's nice and cold by the time you load your food into it. I'll just leave that on the automatic setting for now. Right down here is the converter. This is the power center for the trailer. So all of your fuses are here for your 12-volt circuits, and all of your 110-volt circuits are protected by breakers. It's not uncommon in an RV to blow a fuse. You've got mostly 15-amp fuses here, but a couple of 40s and also a 3-amp fuse. So not a bad idea to have some extra fuses along with you just in case you have to change one at a campsite. In fact, the previous owner seems to have taped a spare 15-amp fuse here right to the door. The other thing with this power converter is it's not uncommon for it to make a little bit of a humming or a buzzing sound when it's operating under load. If your batteries are very low or if you're running a lot of lights, it's just the converter's cooling system when it's operating under load. Right next to that is your furnace. The furnace is controlled from the thermostat on the wall. And all direct spark ignition and everything, so no pilot lights to worry about. And just slide the slider up to the temperature that you're comfortable with. The furnace fan comes on immediately, but it's going to run for 10 or 15 seconds before we will hear a click when the actual furnace burner lights up. And there was that, if you heard it in the video. So now the furnace will come up to temperature. The warm air will blow right from the front of the furnace unit on this one. Once it's come up to temperature, or you turn the furnace off, the same thing happens, only in reverse. The burner goes out immediately, but the fan's still going to run for 30 seconds to a minute just to go through its cycle. With this style of thermostat, when you go to shut it off, make sure you slide the slider all the way over and hear the audible click. Then you know the furnace is all the way off. Otherwise, when you put it into storage, if it's getting cold in the evening, the furnace will be coming on and trying to light, depleting your battery and your propane systems. Right above that is your monitor panel. So this is where you will activate your water pump from. So turn the switch on to engage the water pump. You heard it just come on and pressure up. Most of the time when you're camping, you'll just turn that on and leave it on all the time. You can also check here the level of all of your holding tanks and of your battery. So you can see your fresh holding tank is completely empty, black holding tank completely empty as well. Same with the gray holding tank, and the battery is showing fair, partly because right now the furnace fan is still operating. The furnace fan is the biggest 12-volt power draw that you have. So the more your furnace is running, the shorter your battery life will be out of your 12-volt battery. Here in the bathroom, just a quick word about the RV's sewer system. Anytime you're using the RV sewer system, make sure you put RV toilet chemical down into the tank. You need to use RV toilet paper and RV toilet chemical. The chemical comes in powder, tablet, or liquid form. We sell all three. And when you go to put new chemical into the toilet, open up a package of chemical, pour it into the bowl, and then using the foot flush for the toilet, push halfway down to fill the bowl with water. Once the bowl's full of water, you can dump the rest of the chemical down into the tank, but make sure you put some water down with it. The chemical needs water to activate it, and otherwise it won't work properly. Now we'll shut off our water pump. The other thing here in the bathroom area that's worth pointing out is this power outlet here. This is a GFI power outlet, just like the ones in the bathroom in your home, with a test and reset button. Big difference though in an RV, this is wired in series with the rest of your power outlets as well. So if you're plugged into power at the campsite but you're not getting any power from your outlets, come in here, press the reset button, everything should go back to normal. Underneath the bunk bed, there's a little access panel towards the back. And it'd be hard to see in the video, but if you lift up that access panel, that's where you'll find the back of your hot water tank. And the hot water tank has a 3-valve bypass system on it. So there's a valve on the cold water line going into the bottom of the tank, a valve on the hot water line coming out of the tank, and a valve between the two. Right now it's in the summer position, so the valve into and out of the tank are both open and the bypass valve is closed. When you go to winterize the RV, you'll want to close the valve into and out of the tank and open the valve, the bypass line between them. You'll also, when you go to winterize, need to access your water pump, which is right underneath here. This line on the water pump is the suction side of the water pump. So if you disconnect this line from the pump and hook a siphon line onto that, you can get that here at Trailblazer. You can put that into your jug of antifreeze, turn on your water pump, and pump directly from the jug of antifreeze through all of your water fixtures. There should be a couple of safety features here. So right here you've got your combination propane carbon monoxide detector. So this will do three things. It'll alert you obviously to a propane leak, but if that was the case, you would almost certainly smell the propane before the alarm goes off. It could also alert you to a carbon monoxide situation, but the most common thing that this does is alert you to a low voltage situation. It's wired directly into the RV's 12-volt power system, so if your RV battery gets very low, this will beep or chirp like a smoke detector does when its battery gets low. So if this starts going off, you should still treat it with respect. It could be that you have a propane or a carbon monoxide situation, but more likely than not, it's often just a low voltage problem with your battery. So that's your propane carbon monoxide detector, and this is your smoke detector up here. The smoke detector is not wired into the RV's electrical system. It has its own 9-volt battery, and as part of your annual maintenance, you should just test that smoke detector to make sure that that battery hasn't gone dead over the winter. I think for the most part that covers it. Hopefully you've learned something about the 2013 Innsbruck 259BH. If you have any questions, you can always get a hold of us here at Trailblazer, or you can visit our website, trailblazerrv.com.